Welcome to the CannaBiz Updates by Tonkon Torp. I'm your regular host, Danica Hibpshman, one of the cannabis attorneys here at Tonkon, and with me here today is Jessica Morgan. Okay, well, welcome. Hi, Jessica. How are you?
Good morning, Danica. It is nice to see you.
You too. So why don't we talk a little bit about what the purpose of these little mini episodes that we're trying to put together are. This is our inaugural one, so let's let everybody know what we're trying to do.
Yeah, definitely. I think, you and I have these great conversations about what's going on in the industry. And I think everyone should be able to hear and benefit from the information that we talk about without having to pay for it and maybe get some additional information about what they're doing in the industry to help their businesses.
Yes, definitely. So today, what I thought we'd talk about was just kind of an overview of some of the big things that have happened over the last year, both particularly within Oregon. There's been some big changes, mostly on the legislative and regulatory front, that really have been impactful for the cannabis industry.
Yeah, I think, one of the things that you and I have been talking about recently were some of the issues, the legal statutory issues that have been affecting cannabis law. So maybe that would be a good place to start. Maybe start with what has happened in the last 12 months.
Sure. Well, first and foremost, even before the recent legislative session, the regulatory body OLCC has almost entirely eliminated their backlog of applications. Historically, it has taken a considerable amount of time to get new applications or ownership changes or other things that needed regulatory approval done. It wouldn't be unusual for it to take a year or more, which is really difficult for Oregon businesses to be able to grow in that type of environment. So late last fall, OLCC went through some streamlining processes, changed some rules and policies, and the work has really paid off. At this point, they have practically no backlog of applications, and applicants have been able to expect a pretty consistent 30 to 45 day turnaround time from the time that they put in any sort of request that needs approval. So it really has been a pretty major shift in terms of predictability for the industry in getting things approved for their licenses.
Yeah, that's great. I think from my perspective, it was hindering businesses to be able to get transactions done. There were a lot of complexities introduced because of the additional timeframes that it was taking the OLCC to get rid of or to process these change of ownerships and change of locations and new applications. So I think going forward, this is going to have a pretty positive effect on M&A transactions in the cannabis industry, and potentially change the documentation needed and some of the issues that we're dealing with in those transactions. But we can talk about M&A another day. I think maybe we should move on to some of the other things that the OLCC has done in maybe the last 12 months to help these move things forward for the cannabis licensees.
Yeah, another big thing that occurred was the rollout of OLCC's Verification of Compliance program, or VOC program. And this was in response to some industry requests and angst over what was viewed to be a little bit of over-enforcement. And particularly for licensees that had been around in the industry for a while, they may have garnered violations that were creating some problems with them expanding into other states or growing their businesses. So again, another concern raised by the industry that this is really hampering business growth, that licensees are not given a little bit more leeway and flexibility and education in terms of being compliant before they get hit with serious violations. So OLCC has started this process where they have identified, more common violations that are not typically indicative of bad behavior that would warrant violations, and gives licensees an opportunity to correct them. There's very specific requirements for it, and so we really would recommend if people are having issues or concerns, that they would contact their attorneys and get some guidance on this. But it was a really good development to give the industry more flexibility and more of an opportunity to learn how to be compliant before they would be concerned about getting violations.
Yeah, that seems like a really good program. Hopefully it encourages people to do some of that self-reporting of those minor violations, and then only have some additional legal expense incurred when they have some serious enforcement issues. That I guess maybe they'll be providing some information about the data analytics on that. How is that process going? Is there a way to look into how many people are self-reporting, some of the data behind that?
Well, actually, that's a great segue into, I think, another topic we should cover is just the general 2021 legislative session. Despite it occurring during the middle of a pandemic where a lot of the focus was economic recovery and related issues for the state, the cannabis industry had some pretty major pieces of legislation come out of them. And one of them being Senate Bill 408, where a component of that will be actually having OLCC do some study on its enforcement practices, its enforcement rules, and kind of continue that same process. So I'm real excited to see how that works out. I think the verification of compliance program was a great first step, and now under Senate Bill 408, some additional work to kind of loosen some of the enforcement structure around the cannabis industry is going to occur.
What other issues are in Senate Bill 408 that we should probably be looking out for?
Yeah, Senate Bill 408 was a really major piece of legislation, and really a major accomplishment by the industry. It was a very collaborative effort by all the major trade associations and other industry participants, with the legislative representatives that were working on it, with the regulatory body, to come up with an omnibus bill that has a lot of different provisions in it, that with the general goal of providing some flexibility to the industry. So in addition to some enforcement reform pieces that I think we'll do a whole nother segment on to go into, there is now going to be some allowances for producers to get new seeds, for example. Oregon has been a closed system for some time where there was not a possibility to get new genetics in, and there will now be that opportunity to get a certain number of seeds per month from any source within Oregon. Also going to be increasing some of the concentration limits in certain edible products, and also going to be increasing the possession limits for flower. So that's going to allow consumers to purchase more, and that's something that's been really asked for in the industry to line up with other states. Another key piece to Senate Bill 408 is reducing some of the manifest requirements. This has been a very difficult, task for a lot of licensees to create very detailed turn-by-turn manifests for wherever they're transporting product. And Senate Bill 408 really reduces those requirements so that businesses can more easily flow products around the state without having to map out routes.
And then I think there were a couple of other issues that the Senate Bill 408 addressed, regarding like THC per package, as well as like possession. Do you want to mention those ones?
Senate Bill 408 also is going to be increasing the amount of THC that can be put into processed products. Currently, it's 50 milligrams, and soon it will be 100 milligrams. That's been a big, request by both consumers and the industry for some time, and so it's exciting to see that going to be something that's a possibility soon. The agency is also going to be increasing the possession limits for flower, which is currently 1 ounce, going to 2 ounces, which means that retailers will be able to sell the larger amount, 2 ounces, to consumers as well. These are big changes that really just give the industry a little bit more flexibility in what they can and can't do, and what they can sell, and really lines it up with how other states are treating some of these issues.
That's great. Do we have any idea when we can see some of this actually hitting the industry?
Yeah, so, and this is, I think, also another area really important to consult with your legal counsel if you're going to be taking advantage of some of these provisions, because many of them are not going into effect officially until either the end of this year or OLCC actually engages in rulemaking. And most likely OLCC will be going through rulemaking this fall, so that by the end of the year, when these bills go into effect, these will be things that licensees can take advantage of. But it's important to know that it is not necessarily legal right now to be able to create 100 milligram packages. That's soon to come.
Perfect. So we'll just have later this year, we'll have another
Yes.
update on Senate Bill 408 and the rulemaking that the OLCC has done to implement some of those changes.
Yeah, it'll be very exciting to watch, I think.
I think that there was another one, House Bill 3000, and that is going to affect the hemp market, but it seems like we should maybe mention some of the changes that have been coming along with that piece of legislation.
Yes, House Bill 3000 is really the other very significant legislation that affects the cannabis industry as a whole, primarily hemp products, but there are impacts in that. The bill essentially brings most hemp production for human consumption under the OLCC system. We're going to do a whole segment on that to unpack that bill. It came along relatively late in the legislative session, and I think that there's still a lot of nuances to it that need to be fleshed out. It will be really interesting to kind of watch the implementation of that bill as well over this next fall to see what all of the impacts that will come out of it. A lot of the topics we talked about today will flesh out in much more detail. So stay tuned.
Thanks.
Thank you, everyone. The date of this recording is July 8th, 2021, and the information contained in this conversation is not intended to be legal advice, but rather general updates on new and developing legal issues and trends affecting the cannabis industry in Oregon and elsewhere. Cannabis laws, standards, and policies are constantly changing, and individual facts and circumstances may impact general information shared in this segment. It's important to consult your legal counsel for advice on specific business needs in order to stay legal and compliant.